Welcome back to another episode of Skald Stories. Understanding alignments. Now we've gone through lawful, neutral, and chaotic good. So that means we're on to the neutral alignments. Starting off with lawful neutral. Now, what is lawful neutral? Lawful neutral is essentially you follow a code to the letter, regardless of what it is. The most common form of lawful neutral is like a computer. You follow your programming to the letter regardless of what happens. You do what you're told regardless of what happens. No matter what happens, you follow the code. You follow what you're told. Now, a lot of people, I think, misinterpret this alignment. And I'm going to give you some examples using my favorite Star Trek of all time, The Next Generation. And that's with the captain, Jean-Luc Picard. Now, the reason I believe Jean-Luc is lawful neutral and not one of the good alignments is because he is willing to make the sacrifices because he believes it's the better decision. Not that it's good, not that it's evil, not that it's right, not that it's wrong, but because he believes that the way it should be done is the best option for everybody involved. He tries to find that middle ground. However, you're going to be surprised at some of the examples I make during this video. Now again, like always, spoiler alerts. And I'm not going to necessarily do these in order of episodes, mainly because I can't remember them. I've seen this show like a million times, but I don't know the episodes in order by heart. So if some episodes come before others, then I apologize. But the point I'm trying to get across is the meaning behind those episodes and why Captain Picard fits the mold of lawful neutral. So the first one we're going to be looking at is what kind of man is Picard? He's a man of integrity, of civility. He's a man that gets the job done. And he takes command. He is the prime example of a commanding officer. He's the guy everyone looks up to. He's the guy who gives some of the best advice. He's the one that eventually kind of is seen as the father figure of a lot of people in the show. He doesn't embrace that title, but he is wise enough that people respect him for it. He doesn't tell people what to do because he believes a certain thing. He tells people what to do because he believes it will produce the best outcome, even if it means going against the crew. There's a rather reoccurring joke in the series, not the series itself, but by the fans, that a lot of the decisions Mr. Worf says all the time is often blown off because, well, if the right decision like that was made, then the story wouldn't have the drama it would have. So, like, for example, let's say the Enterprise goes towards a mysterious planet and they see a random ship coming towards them. Mr. Worf would be like, "Ready phasers, sir. Ready weapons." And then Jean-Luc would look behind him and say, "Why? No aggression has been made. So why are we raising shields and readying weapons?" "Well, to defend yourself, you dumb fuck." But due to the commander's orders, Worf stands down. So despite seeing the obvious choice of, hey, we need to defend ourselves against this mysterious thing that's coming at us, but because he commands Mr. Worf to step down, Mr. Worf does so. Picard believes in order. He believes in making sure every cog in the machine is oiled and running perfectly. So, why does he fit the letter of lawful neutral? Well, I'll give you some examples. One of the best examples is the episode called A Measure of a Man. Now, to break it down as best I can, the android, which you see here, his name is Data. He is the only sentient android in the galaxy. He's a robot who is about as close to human as you can possibly get. He just lacks emotion, and he can't make contractions. He says, I cannot instead of I can't. Things like that, which I think is a cute little quirk. But eventually, a scientist named Maddock wants to transfer Data to a science lab, disassemble him, and learn about him so they can possibly construct more Datas. Now, Data is an extremely valuable asset. He's smart, he's strong, he can calculate way faster than any other human. He's got better reaction, he's got an infinite amount of knowledge space in his brain. He basically never runs out of hard drive space, if you get me. But he is still an android. So, because he's in Starfleet, they order him to transfer. Now, Picard obviously could fight this transfer, but he doesn't see it as something that's winnable. So he doesn't even attempt it. He tells Data, hey, if you really don't want to go through with this operation, you could just resign your position and leave. And Data does. He resigns his commission, or his position, or whatever you want to call it, from Starfleet. Maddock is obviously pissed, so he takes it up with Starfleet High Command. And they essentially say, Data is not a person. He can't resign. You can't have this computer just up and quitting. We can't let a valuable resource like this go. So Data is forced to stay. Jean-Luc disapproves of this because he believes that Data is a person and he has rights. He has liberties. He has a constitutional right to make a choice. Maddock eventually says, well, think of it this way. Would you refuse the Enterprise computer from any software updates or a retrofit? Any upgrades or possible parts replacements if the computer said no? And Picard's like, well, it's not the same thing. Data is sentient. And Maddock obviously makes the argument of it's a machine. Doesn't matter. It's not a person. So it eventually breaks down into a court case scenario where Jean-Luc has to convince the court that Data is sentient and that he has rights and he has liberties and freedoms. So he asks people, if you disassemble him, what will you do? Well, we'll make more Datas. A bunch of them. Lots of them. Imagine a Data on every ship. And Jean-Luc is like, so none of them will have rights. They'll all just be considered walking computers. But if there's hundreds of them, wouldn't that be considered a race? Wouldn't he have his own, species then? And if that's the case, are you dooming them to a life of slavery? If they have no liberties, no freedoms, and they don't have a choice, that could be considered slavery. Now, I'm not going to reveal what happens in the episode. He makes a lot more points than this. But what is the takeaway from this from an alignment standpoint? Jean-Luc went against Starfleet orders to protect Data. Now, this might seem like a neutral good act, but remember, this is a court case. If he loses, he has to submit to the orders. And Jean-Luc will. He's fighting to protect Data, but not to the point where it means, I don't know, treason, I guess. He's not going to smuggle him away. He's not going to fight the system even harder after that. I mean, he may. But the point I'm trying to get across is a lawful neutral character is misunderstood because people don't know how it really works. People think a lawful neutral character follows orders to the letter, that they can't ever say no. That's not true. They can. They can say no. What matters is why they say no. Picard tossed aside Starfleet orders to protect Data. So, okay, he's not following the law of Starfleet. Right. Because the code he's following is his own. He's following his own beliefs, whether it's good or bad. And I'll give you a proof of this. So down the line, there comes an episode where they find out that there's two, let's say, factions of aliens. I forget their names exactly. But one side provides all the labor, but they're suffering from a disease. A very painful, very crippling disease. And the other side of the race has medication that will ease the pain of the disease. It kind of mellows them out, so to speak. Well, spoilers, again, spoilers, turn off now. It turns out that this drug that they're giving these people is addictive. It's a narcotic. It's extremely addictive. These people aren't sick. They're drug addicts. They're getting withdrawals. So what's happening is the one side is tricking the labor side into thinking they have this big disease and their planet or their side of the planet or whatever has the only cure for the disease, quote unquote. So in exchange for the manual labor and all that jazz, they give the medicine to the sick people and they get to live comfortable lives. Essentially, they have enslaved these people through drug addiction. They're aware of this. And Picard becomes aware of this. Now, Dr. Crusher is the one that finds out, hey, these guys are drug addicts. They don't have the disease anymore. They're suffering from withdrawals. All we have to do is tell them this. But Picard is bound by a code in Starfleet called the Prime Directive. Now, the Prime Directive means that you cannot interfere in another culture. So this means that Picard can't tell them, hey, you guys are being manipulated, you guys are being drugged, blah, blah, blah. He can't do it. And he can't forcefully stop the drug dealers from giving them the medicine. He can't do anything. And he refuses to do anything because he believes the Prime Directive is in place to prevent cultures from either being wiped out or from going completely chaotic. Like, for example, imagine if one side was given a crap ton of guns to fight off the other side. Well, the culture could be completely destroyed. The entire race could, like, discover technology that's like 10,000 times farther ahead in the future than what they're capable of. You could completely set their race out of whack. The Prime Directive is there to prevent that. So what happens in the episode is the labor force, their ship breaks down. They paid for the medicine. They have the medicine, but the ship breaks down. So they beam the medicine over to the ship. They beam over to the ship. And there's an argument over payment. Because the ship malfunctioned and essentially it destroyed some of the cargo, the payment that was made for the medicine was never technically delivered. So the drug dealers, which I will continue to call them, claim that, hey, we were never paid, so the medicine is still ours. And the labor force is like, no, we paid you. It's not our fault that the payment was destroyed after the transaction, so the medicine is ours. And the entire episode is them arguing over this. So, shit happens, blah, 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 blah. And eventually, Picard can do nothing. And he orders Dr. Crusher to say nothing. They cannot interfere. So how do you solve this problem? The added challenge for a lawful neutral character is to solve this problem without breaking the rule. Now, like I said before, Picard doesn't follow Starfleet's rules. He follows his own interpersonal code. If that happens to line up with Starfleet's code, then so be it. Which is exactly what the Prime Directive is. He believes in the Prime Directive. He sees the benefits of the Prime Directive, so he's not willing to break it. By any means. This entire civilization could be doomed to slavery because of his how do I put this? From his inaction. From him not doing anything, he is dooming these people to drug-induced slavery. He doesn't like it, but it is what it is. But, well, in the episode, their ship is broken down because they need some type of coil, some type of engine part. And Picard has that engine part. They're willing to let you guys have it. No problem. You guys can fix your ship and be on your way. Picard says no. Nope. We're not giving you the part. And the drug dealers are like, well, you have to give us the part. Otherwise, you're, interfering with our culture by not allowing us to proceed with the transaction. They try to pull that bullshit. But Picard's like, actually, by me giving you the coil piece, I am interfering. This ship broke down of your own free will. So you have to figure out what to do. Now remember, without that ship, this medicine shipment will not get to the people who have a quote-unquote disease that they need cured. So they're all going to suffer and die. But in reality, all they're suffering from is drug withdrawals. Picard found a solution. By preventing them from fixing their ship, it gives the people suffering from the withdrawals time to recover from those withdrawals while the medicine works its way out of the system and they realize they're fine. They don't need the drug. So Picard not only was able to fulfill the conditions of the Prime Directive, he was able to fulfill the conditions of his own personal code, and he solved the problem at the same time. This is the core challenge of a lawful neutral character. You have to find a way to solve the situation within the boundaries of the rules. A lawful good character probably would have done the same thing. Maybe. But like the situation with Data, they wouldn't have disobeyed an order from Starfleet Command. Not to my knowledge, at least. But what differentiates them from a lawful neutral character is the dark half of that, where If Picard did nothing, it would doom the one civilization to drug-induced slavery. And he was willing to accept that. However, he did see the plight, and he found a way to make it work without breaking the code. A neutral good character would probably have just flat out told them. A chaotic good character would have probably taken the medicine, thrown it into space, and said, all right, you guys are going to have to deal with this on your own. But Picard found a way to make it work. There's more examples of this. So, for example, let's see here. Aha. So, in one episode, I forget the name of the episode, there is a planet of people. Naturally. They're on a planet. A radiated planet. So the planet is covered in radiation, and these humans have lived on this planet so long they have adapted to this radiation. So no other human can go down, right? So, another race called, what are they called? I forget what they're called. But this race of beings is extremely focused on bureaucracy, forms, contracts, to make sure deals and obligations are very clear, very well written, very airtight, let's say. So, for example, this race of beings have a land claim on this planet, but there's a human colony there. So, they tell the Enterprise, pack up these humans, leave with them, because we're going to be there in like 6 days. And after 6 days, if those people are still there, we are going to wipe them out. We are going to annihilate this entire colony, because this planet belongs to us. And you have 6 days, as per the contract, to remove them. After that, it's fair game. So, Picard has the challenge of staying within the contract while also trying to convince the colonists to leave. Well, naturally, they don't want to. They settled here, they believe the planet is theirs, blah, blah, blah. But because the planet is radiated, they can't go down. So, Picard sends Data, the android, because he's the only one that can go down. And, well, shit happens, blah, blah, blah. And the alien race is getting closer and closer. The deadline is getting shorter and shorter. Picard is trying desperately to talk to these aliens to give them more time, because Data is unsuccessful in convincing the colonists to leave. He's telling them, hey, they're called the Shellyak. They're called the Shellyak. Yes, I knew I'd get it. Yeah, Torbjorn's smart, huh? Anyway, so the Shellyak, they don't even need to go down to the planet. The colonists are like, we'll fight them tooth and nail, no problem. And Data's like, dude, they could just bomb you from orbit. You won't even see their faces. They could literally just annihilate you with photon torpedoes from the air. You'll die for nothing. You'll die defending this place without ever having seen the faces of your killers. Don't be stupid. And as the Shellyak are getting closer and closer, every time Picard tries to talk to them to buy more time, they keep hanging up on him. They keep dropping the call. Even when he goes to their ship personally, they teleport him out of there as another form of hanging up. So Picard's getting fed up with this. And he starts using the Enterprise to block the ship and says, no, you're not attacking this colony. And of course, he's potentially in breach of contract. And that could start a galactic war. So how does Picard solve this problem? Well, he looks over the contract for like days. He looks over it for days and days and days. And he finds a loophole. He finds a loophole that says if two parties in the conflict cannot find a solution to the conflict, they are allowed to name an arbiter, a sort of referee, to look over both sides' arguments and then make a decision. Picard names a species called the Grisellas. I believe they're called the Grisellas. And the Grisellas are currently in a hibernation cycle, which will last 6 months. They have to wait 6 months for the arbiters to wake up and solve this dispute. And the Shellyak are like, what the fuck? We can't wait 6 months. We're not going to do that. And Picard's like, well, then we have nothing further to discuss. And Picard hangs up the call. Oh, but that's not the best part. The best part is, okay, so the Shellyak call back. Now, in the episode, Patrick Stewart, the actor that plays Jean-Luc Picard, he was supposed to answer the callback immediately. However, he wanted to add a little bit more drama to the situation. Because the Shellyak had hung up on him time and time again, he wanted to make them sweat a little bit. So what Patrick Stewart did was, instead of answering the call right away, he walked over very slowly to this plaque on the wall. And the other actors were like, oh, okay. They actually perked up. If you watch the footage, you can see Jonathan Frakes kind of perk up and be like, oh okay, he's breaking character. What the hell's going on? So Patrick Stewart walks over to this plaque. He rubs his finger across the top of it, checking it for dust. And then he kind of checks his fingers like, okay, yeah, it could be it's a little bit dusty. Could fix that up. And then he slowly walks back to his position. And Michael Dorn, the actor that plays Worf, in character, he goes, sir? they just play along with it. And then Picard is like, all right, answer the call. So he says, okay, either you give me 3 weeks to get these colonists out of here, because the transporters will be running constantly. So what they're going to do is they're going to send shuttles down to pack up a bunch of people, bring them back, go back down, bring them back, just shuttling people back and forth. It's going to take them forever. So he says, either give me 3 weeks or wait 6 months for the arbiters. You make your choice. And they say, all right, we'll give you 3 weeks. And then, of course, he hangs up on them, and Jonathan Frakes looks at Patrick Stewart and says, you enjoyed that, didn't you? And Picard's like, you're damn right. So, what do we take away from this from an alignment standpoint? Jean-Luc Picard was able to solve the situation without breaking the contract and without forcing the colonists. He could have easily just teleported the colonists up by force. He could have easily said, I don't care what you guys say. You're coming with us whether you like it or not. He was willing to risk a breach of contract to save these lives. Why? Because he himself isn't bound to the contract. He's bound to his own conscience. That's the code he follows. That's the law he follows. He sees the preservation of life as more important than fulfilling the contract. But he wasn't willing to break the contract. He just wanted an extension. He wanted extra time, that's all. So he found a way to do it. He didn't break contract, and he kept his conscience clean. And in the end, the only ones that really lost was the Shellyak. I mean, they still got the planet. It's just they had to wait a little bit longer, that's all. So let's look at a few more examples. Now, let's see here. What else do I got? I mean, people think lawful neutral characters can't, go beyond the emotions that they're set. Picard laughs and jokes with his crew. He has emotions just like any person. It's just the core behind a lawful neutral character is they have to stay within the bounds of their rules, their code. Picard doesn't follow Starfleet's code, he follows his own. And if that happens to line up with Starfleet, then all the better. I'll give you another example. Another example that happens is there is a Betazoid woman named Lwaxana Troi, who is the mother of Deanna Troi, the ship's counselor. So she gets kidnapped by some Ferengi because the Ferengi not only want her telepathic powers to help them negotiate trade deals, but because the captain thinks she's hot. Now, Lwaxana Troi has always had a crush on Picard. That much, is obvious throughout the show. So, what does Picard do to get her out of the situation? A good character would possibly try to force their way through, or try to negotiate their way through. Picard attempts to negotiate, but it doesn't work. And he doesn't want to start a war, so he's not going to use force. So he resorts to trickery. He pretends that he is Lwaxana Troi's lover, who is jealous of the Ferengi that has taken his woman away. And he says to Lwaxana Troi, "You are mine. You belong to me. I will not let you go with this new man." And he recites a bunch of poetry to her, and he threatens to blow up the ship in order to have Lwaxana Troi back. And the Ferengi captain is like, "But you'll blow her up. You'll blow her up too." And Picard says, "If I can't have her, no one will." Now, of course, this is all a lie. This is all a trick to get the Ferengi to let go of her and send her back. And it works. It does work. So, again, Picard solved a problem, A, without violence, and B, while staying true to his code. His code was he didn't want to start a war, and he doesn't want to make any aggressive moves, but he also isn't above dirty tactics. He isn't above trickery. He isn't above playing dirty, let's say. Remember, he's lawful neutral. The neutral part is crucial. I'll give you another example. There is a point where Picard, he essentially is a father figure to a boy named Wesley Crusher. Now, throughout the entire show, Wesley Crusher is an arrogant little douchebag. I'll make a video on why he sucks later. Okay? So let's just move on. Anyway, major spoilers for this one. So, throughout the entire series, Picard is like a father figure to Wesley. He teaches him the ropes, he looks after him, and eventually Wesley joins Starfleet Academy. Now, in the episode, Wesley is responsible for another kid's death. They were part of a training program dealing with flight simulation, but it was an actual formation flight test in space. Now, the commanding person in their little private unit, in their cadet unit, convinced them to pull off a maneuver that was banned because it's so dangerous. He basically wanted to show off how awesome they were. But they didn't do it correctly, and a kid named Joshua died. Now, they didn't want to get in trouble, like all teenagers do. They lied. They lied and said, "No, we were in this kind of formation, and there was a malfunction, blah, blah, blah. Joshua died. That's the end of the story." And of course, eventually, more and more evidence comes out that contradicts their story. Now, At the end of that episode, not enough evidence comes out where the group can be like fully charged. They'll get reprimands on their records, but that's it. And they think they've gotten away with it. But a little bit into the episode, Picard finds out the truth. He realizes what happened. And he calls Wesley in. And he is pissed. I mean, look at his face. He's pissed. He realizes, hey, you guys tried to do something really stupid. And one of your crewmates died because of it. And you're not coming clean. And Wesley says, no, I told the truth up to a point. I didn't lie. And Picard goes off on him and says, you did. You kept out parts of the truth. A lie of omission is still a lie. Something like that. He says the first duty of a Starfleet officer is to the truth, whether it's scientific truth or personal truth. And if you can't understand that, then you don't deserve to wear that uniform. Those are the guiding principles upon which Starfleet was founded. And he says, I'm going to make this very simple for you, Mr. Crusher. Either you come forward or I will. He is willing to risk this kid's career, who he has been a father figure for the entire series. He has looked after this kid. He's taken care of this kid throughout the whole series. And right now, he is willing to completely trash on this kid's career in Starfleet. Why? Because Wesley is going against Picard's personal code. Picard sees this as a betrayal. He sees this as an insult to not only Starfleet and their principles, but his own. He sees this as the coward's way out. He sees Wesley as saving his own ass. And some other kid paid the price for this. And Wesley's basically saying, well, I don't care. I'm not sacrificing my career for this. And Picard said, fine. Then I'm fucking telling him. And you're going to be expelled. Your career in Starfleet will be over. But if you come forward and take it like a man, at least you'll have a clear conscience. If you don't, this death will weigh on you. And you'll have to live with that the rest of your life. And eventually Wesley does come forward. The captain of the cadets gets expelled because he was the one that convinced them to go along with the plan. And the problem with Wesley not coming forward was because the captain of the cadets was also kind of manipulating them into saying, well, you should look after your friends. Don't give a shit about what Picard says. I thought your loyalty was to your friends, and if you come forward, we're all screwed. So Wesley was basically trying to wrestle where his loyalties lie. And eventually his conscience did catch up with him, and his loyalty is to Starfleet. Because Picard taught him, you have to do this, or you're not a member of Starfleet. You're an embarrassment and an insult. And in a way, that helped Wesley understand what it means to be in Starfleet. You have to do these things, even if you don't like them. You fucked up. You cost someone their life, and that guilt will live with you for the rest of your life. As payment for that, Wesley was held back from graduation. He had to stay in Starfleet for another, year? He basically had to stay in Starfleet for another round. He didn't graduate with his class. He had to stay behind. That was his punishment. And Picard basically said, this will live with you for the rest of your life. And you have to learn to accept that. You fucked up. But at least you have your integrity still. Because if you lied to that council, if you lied to the Starfleet admirals, then that too would weigh on your conscience. And Picard would have lost respect for him. He even said, I had faith in you since day one until now. That's why Picard was so pissed off. So what can we take away from Picard? Picard is a man that's willing to do what it takes to solve the situation, but he will not sacrifice himself to do so. He finds ways to do it without sacrifice, even if it means the harsh way or the harsher way. That to me is what a lawful neutral character is. It's a person that will stick to their code. They will stick to their rule set. And they will do it regardless of who benefits and who it harms. But the challenge is finding a way to maneuver around that obstacle and come out with the best possible solution. And I believe Captain Picard did that several times throughout the series. And these are just a few examples. There's dozens more I didn't cover, but we're coming up pretty long, and I wanted to just give a few examples. Watch The Next Generation. That Star Trek is my favorite. It's my absolute favorite because these mental dramas are the point of the show. The point of The Next Generation of Star Trek is to explore the concepts of these ideals, to see all the sides of them. Here's how I see it. Star Wars is the action-oriented side. Star Trek is the more political side. Is Data a person or a machine? Do I save these drug addicts, or do I leave them to save themselves? Do I let this boy live with the guilt and the shame of having taken a life to save his own ass? Or do I risk his entire career so that justice is served? These are the challenges a lawful neutral character has to deal with. And I think that's where the fun comes in. I hope you found this informative, and I hope it helps you in your, well, in your writing. Tell your story, my friend.